Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Simon Scott Assembly Hall for the press conferences in front of the second round game of the 2024 NCAA Division I Women's Basketball Championships. Just a reminder that the open locker room portion for Indiana will run simultaneously with today's press conferences from 2:15 to 2:45 p.m. If you're joining us in the room, please raise your hand and state your name and affiliation before asking your question. And if you're on Zoom, use the raise your hand function and we'll get to you near the end of the press conference. On the dais, we are joined by senior Chloe Moore McNeil and senior Sydney Parrish. Ladies, welcome back, and we'll take questions from the room. Front row in front.
Hey guys, Talia Goodman with the Next. I guess I saw a bunch of you watching the game last night. What do you think is the biggest thing that you've learned about Oklahoma, just from what you've learned so far?
Yeah, 60% of their shots come from within the first 10 seconds of their transition. So we know we've got to get back, whether it's a make or a miss, and lock in on our transition D.
Yeah, they have two tremendous post players who can also play on the outside. So, we have to have high hands for their shooters and, make a presence on the inside.
We'll go second row in the middle.
Nick Jenkinson, South Central Indiana News Network. Chloe, for you yesterday, Coach keeps talking about how you're very vocal, and especially, obviously, in that first half when Fairfield was making runs and, that you definitely were speaking up. How have you learned from just the fact that you're now able to be such a vocal leader from your time here?
Yeah, just coming from an understanding of what this team needs. We have great leaders, Sydney Parrish and Mackenzie Holmes, and I think the combination of us using our voices, whether it's in practice or in games and timeouts, is really essential to this team.
We'll go first row right in front.
Kevin Vera inside the hall. For either of you guys, with the month of March, it's naturally it's game after game. There's a quick turnaround. Is there anything that you guys do specifically as players to sort of take in the information and just kind of get ready for the team on a short notice?
Sydney, why don't you take that first?
Yeah, our coaching staff does a really good job of keeping us in the gym and watching film as much as we can. And, right after our game yesterday, we were, after we showered and got ready, we were right out there trying to watch every possession and take as much information in as we can. It's going to help us prepare for the next game. And recovery is a big deal for us too, just trying to get our bodies right in such a short notice of time.
Chloe, anything to add?
Yeah, Sid hit it right on the head, just, taking a lot of mental reps when it's in film. We understand we don't have a lot of time like we're used to on the court, so it's being mentally prepared and taking advantage of recovery and treatment.
We'll go front row.
For both of you guys, Mackenzie yesterday during the game was, emotional on and off the court. You could see her on the bench kind of screaming some things, making some motions. She said that you guys play a lot better when you're emotional. What was it like kind of watching her from that perspective in her emotions?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it gets us hyped when we see our teammates excited, whether it's her or even Sarah. I think she came out of her shell a little bit yesterday. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Sarah just is really competitive, and so it's really fun to see. And I don't think we saw it a lot last year on the court, but we always saw it last year and this year in practice. So Coach tried to challenge her this year to kind of bring it out from practice to the game, and we've been seeing that this year. So it's been a lot of fun to see.
We'll go front row on your left.
Austin Rinder, IU Sports Radio Network. On Sarah, what's it like when she's playing like that? Do you just kind of get the ball to her and get out of the way?
Yeah, it's when Sarah's in her zone, she's in her zone. When other people, I'd say when the other team starts kind of talking to her, getting in her head, I don't think there's any getting out of it. So I kind of get the ball to her, and once she hits one of those step back threes, it's kind of end game.
Chloe, anything to add?
No.
We'll go second row right in the middle.
Yesterday and today, the Oklahoma players have talked about how this is going to be a tough environment for them. And, of course, playing in the Big 12 at places like Texas, Iowa State, Kansas State, they're getting ready to prepare for it. So how cool is it for you guys now knowing that you've got the big home crowd prepared tomorrow to get ready to go against Oklahoma?
Yeah, obviously to host, it's a big advantage that not every team is fortunate enough to have. And we're blessed to have that, and we realize our fans have – willed us through wins a lot of games. So,
Sydney, anything to add?
Just we're really, really grateful that we do get to play in an environment like this. And we've played in environments like this also at away games. At Iowa, that's a tough place to play. Same with like Nebraska. So we've been in those situations as well, and it's not easy to win at other places that are packed with 17,000 fans. So hopefully Hoosier Nation shows out tomorrow and gets us through the game, and hopefully we can celebrate after.
Ladies, Greg Campbell with IUHoosiers.com. I'll ask kind of maybe an obvious question, but last year you were in the same position. Most of this team was in the same position. What do you take from last year to this year to get you over the top?
We try not to think much about last year, but I think it's always in the back of our mind. This is a new team, a new season. We have a lot of returners, but still we can't compare ourselves to the team we were last year. But like I said, it's still going to be in the back of our mind. We still have that chip on our shoulder, and we never want to feel like we did after our loss last year. And, keep the main thing, and it's just survive in advance, get to the next game. So that's what we're focused on.
Chloe, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with Sid 100%. Just having that chip on our shoulder and realizing we're not the same team that we were last year.
Chloe, I know you had the assignment on Janelle Brown most of the game yesterday. What were the adjustments at halftime that allowed you guys to have more success against her?
I think really just the only adjustments was to her speed. She's a really quick guard that likes to get downhill a lot, so kind of just retreating when I could realize that she's trying to get to the rim.
Do we have any other questions for the student athletes in the room? Last call for questions on Zoom. All right, ladies, thank you for joining us and have a great practice.
Thank you.
Indiana's locker room still has about 13 minutes left of open locker room time.
Thanks, ladies. Good luck.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're now joined on the dais by Indiana head coach Terry Morin. Coach, welcome back.
Thank you.
We will ask for an opening statement, and then we'll take questions from the room.
Well, we got off to a good start, I thought, yesterday, especially after we got our feet wet in that first half with the pace. But I thought our second half play was really good. It was great to rest, some of those starters. Our bench was terrific. Started our preparation on Oklahoma last night. Got the kids out of here early, so they looked rested today. We just got done with our practice, rested and very focused, and so we're excited to be moving on. We know that we have a challenge ahead of us and a very, very good Oklahoma team that's going to pose some challenges for us. But we're excited to be, in this position to play tomorrow night.
All right, thanks, Coach. Raise your hand, and we'll get a mic to you in the room. Coach, we'll start second row on your left.
Ryan Canfield, Indiana Daily student. Coach, how does it feel to be back at the stage where you guys had an early exit last year? How does it feel to just, get a second chance?
Yeah, well, we don't look backwards. We only look forward to what's ahead of us, and so we feel really good about being where we are right now. Great about being at home and able to host once again. So we've only looked forward. We don't tend to look backwards. At least I don't. We're in a great position to be at home and play in front of our home crowd, and understand that there's a task at hand, business to take care of.
We'll go first row right in front.
Hey, Coach. I saw you guys all watching the second game last night. What's the biggest thing you think you learned from that and just your preparation so far?
Well, watching it, I don't know that any of us could have determined who was going to win it. Two really, really good teams. I thought, which we don't expect this. Oklahoma's pace was a little bit slower than we anticipated. Just watching them on film and realizing that 60% of their scoring comes in the first 10 seconds of their shot clock. So, talk about pace. We anticipate it being a faster pace tomorrow that they'll want to play at. What we can't do is we can't become a track meet for us. If we come down, we miss a shot, we go back down, and we don't want to trade misses with them. We want to understand what a good shot looks like for us. But again, impressive play. I think they're a well-balanced team. Have great guard play, but also really good post players that are going to play with their back to the basket. More traditional post players than what we saw with Fairfield. But something that we'll be used to, just from our experience in Big Ten play, happen to play against traditional bigs. But really, really good team and a great offense. A lot of body movement, a lot of ball movement. But I will say this, going into the weekend, we felt like the three opponents, that we knew we were obviously going to play Fairfield, but the other two, I think Fairfield helped us kind of get ready for either one of the teams, whether it was going to be Florida Gulf Coast and or Oklahoma in terms of, their motion offense and then playing 5 out and all the cutting that we're going to have to guard. I thought the preparation for Fairfield probably put us ahead of our preparation, today for Oklahoma, because we've really we've been repping, a lot of that last week.
We'll go second row right in the middle.
Mike,
we'll
what
go
you got?
first row on the left.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, just, again, she was a terrific college player, too, at Iowa. And very offensive-minded. I also got to spend time with her this summer with USA Basketball. She was one of our court coaches. So very intense, very, like I said, very, very smart, and, very, very good offensively. And And so that's what I remember of all of her teams. Not that they're not good defensively, but I think if she chooses to spend time on one side, it's probably more offense than it is, them defensively. And so, I consider her a friend, but and a very, very, very good coach.
How does that inform her kind of team with the offensive mindset? What do you see from her?
Yeah, just the motion, not a traditional set-oriented offense. Read, react. I think that there's probably called plays inside of their motion that they're trying to pick on, whether it's a matchup they like, whether they want to get a post touch. But it's been hard to pick up play calls, and that's how you know that what they run is. There's some freedom inside of that, but I do think there's specific people that she wants to get a touch from, and that's what's been hard to figure out what that call is from the sideline. I think we have, in watching all the film that we've watched and even watching them live yesterday, maybe picked up on 2 play calls, and that makes it hard because it makes it hard for when we go into preparation to say this is the call for this action, and so that's where they make it a challenge.
We'll go front row on your left.
Seth.
Yep, got you,
Is this
Seth.
on?
What you
Yeah,
got?
hey. Obviously this is the last game tomorrow for Mackenzie and Sarah at Assembly Hall. You've seen how that moment went for Allie a couple years ago, and
Yeah.
also on the other side how it went for Grace last year. How important is it for them and for you all to leave Mac and Sarah with one last positive memory on this court?
I haven't really thought about that. Again, we've just been so task oriented on, what we have to do starting yesterday. Again, I think we're all just, and I've said it. We're working off of the just being grateful. Right now that we're playing, but understanding that we're entitled to nothing. And, just because it's Mackenzie and Sarah's last game and Ariel's last game, that doesn't entitle us to, wanting the script to be that, they won their last game here in Assembly Hall. I mean, we're not entitled to that. We understand that we got to work for that. We got to earn it. And so that's really been our focus. We haven't, got caught up in the feelings of, what it being their last game.
If you're joining us on Zoom and have a question, use the raise your hand function. If you're in the room and have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get you a mic.
Kevin Vera, Inside the Hall. Terry, at this point of the year, everybody's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so wins or losses sometimes kind of comes down towards the mental aspect of the game. As the coach, I mean, how do you go about teaching your players really to stay level-headed at this point of year when it's really, a lot of chaos is going on and, the pressure's on?
We talk about distractions a lot. We talked about it going into this week. We're trying to keep the distractions at a minimum and understand that, it's a privilege to be in this tournament. And in order to advance, you have to, every game has to come one at a time, but there has to be a certain level of focus too. And, whether you have, just the blinders on and just that laser focus that we've had. I've tried to be very intentional about how much time we've been on the floor, managing that. But also like today, we watched film last night. We watched film again this morning. We took advantage of our time while we were waiting for media to watch position film with them. And so, I call it mental reps. So although we may not be getting physical reps, which we did earlier, but we kept that short. I think we've really tried to take advantage of the time and get the mental reps, in watching this offense that I'm speaking of because of all the movement that's going to be required and the discipline, but also the communication that it's going to take. And so, I think that there is, when you have leaders like Mackenzie, you have leaders like Chloe and even Sid, there's a seriousness about this group right now. And, just listening to them, whether it's before we start, whether it's after we get done with a certain drill, and we know that we're going to talk about, as I call it, we're going to talk about them. They know who the opponent is. Just the chatter that goes on with dial in, focus in. That's the kind of conversations they're having. They were very serious in our walkthrough today, or maybe we didn't walk through, but we didn't go 100%. And so I think there's been a great focus about this group and a seriousness about this group with how they prepared for Fairfield, and certainly how we're preparing right now for Oklahoma.
Go first row right in front.
Kind of within that same realm, but the seriousness before leads to the emotional playing within it. And in talking to the players, especially Mackenzie, was emotional on and off the court with some hand motions and some yelling. And she said, you guys play better when you have that emotion, when you're free, when you're fun. What's it like watching them?
I love
those
it.
moments?
I love every moment of it because we talk about joy a lot in our program, and I want them to play with joy. But we talk a lot about playing with emotion but not being emotional, and I think there's a difference between those two things. And right now I think that from Sarah yesterday to Mackenzie, when things get going in the right direction for us and they're feeding off of each other, there's a tremendous amount of joy that they're all playing with, and I love it because it's a game at the end of the day, and you want them to enjoy it. And I think, I get tickled at watching them feed off of each other, the bench and all of it. How excited they get for one another is really cool.
We'll go second row right in the middle.
Yeah, Terry, you're now kind of experienced with the tournament. I think it was your 6th bid. In terms of your experience, is there anything that earlier in your career that just didn't work when you were doing tournament prep that you've thrown out? I mean, you talked about being more intentional at practice time.
Yeah.
I mean, is this something you change year to year? I know you guys are very habit-based, but
right.
In terms of tournament prep,
yeah.
What have you learned kind of through the years as you've gained experience kind of going through it?
Probably, Mike, that less is better, And when I say less, I don't mean, I mean duration of practice time. I've really tried to cut back probably in the last month, 3 weeks, but especially the last 2 weeks of really the duration of practice, really hitting them with maybe an hour, 15, 75 minutes of hard, intense work, whether it's, and again, a combination of both offensive, defensive work, but trying to do more in our preparation like today, really giving them those mental reps of film. We'll do it again tomorrow because we will have a gap between our shoot-around time and I call it our eat-around time, instead of we'll watch more film that'll butt up to their eat-around, and then they'll go home and then come back because I want to try to keep it as routine as we can in terms of our normal prep time, even though it's not. But probably just that less is better for this group, especially because you can lean on their experience and trust in their experience that they can watch film and still get really good information from it without having to go on the floor and do it physically.
We'll go first row right in front.
Ryan Costello, the Hoosier Network. Coach, you were talking about the experience. How much does that allow them to stay dialed in while also showing that emotion on the court?
Well, I think again, when at least in my experience, I think when your team feels confident, right, that there won't be any surprises in their preparation. I think it gives them not just confidence, but I think it puts them sort of at ease also. And then when you find, when you start having some success, whether it's on the defensive side of the ball and or offensive side of the ball, I think it sort of snowballs, right, for us at least. When Sarah gets hot, you feel like you watch Sid hit a few shots and Yarden hit a few shots, and we're sharing the ball and we're putting the ball inside to Mac and we're scoring, but then we're going down and we're getting the stops that we need. I think that brings us. It's fun to play that way, and it always doesn't. It doesn't always happen that way, but I think both pieces of it, with the confidence, but knowing that they've done the work, and now it's just a matter of getting on the floor and trying to execute, the game plan as well as they can.
We have time for 2 more, and Indiana's locker room is now closed. front row on the left.
Terry, I know you said before when asked about last year that it was, you are not looking back, looking forward.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, your team has experienced, that disappointment from last year, and, you've made deep runs in this tournament. Just kind of having experienced both sides of that, does that perspective kind of give you all any benefit going into another big game like this?
Yeah, I think so. I think any time that you fall short on a goal. I mean, I think you've heard Mackenzie and I think Sid talk about a little bit of having a chip. I think that all can be good to an extent, but I go back to the fact that we've we're prepared for this moment, and we'd love to win all of them, but we know that that's probably not going to happen during the duration of the season. But I think all of our times that we've come up short on our schedule has taught us a lesson that we can take into this tournament, but also having this tournament experience, we understand how important the start is. And that's where, I talked to them a lot last year. I felt like in that Miami game, we got off to a slow start. And so tomorrow, I think our start's going to have to be it's going to be critical to how we'll do.
We'll take last question in the front row right in front.
Terry, I know you already talked about Oklahoma stylistically, but they were the best team in the Big 12 this year, and so far the Big 12 has had the most success in the tournament, 7-0. Just as a conference as a whole, as a basketball conference, what is it that makes the Big 12 sort of unique, or what is it that is special about them?
Yeah, I don't know. I just think there's so much talent and parity right now in women's basketball. I don't know that you can just chalk it up to a particular conference. They got great teams, right, in that league, but so does the Big, and so does the ACC, and so does the SEC. So, I don't know if you chalk it up to that conference as much as you just chalk it up to women's basketball right now. And the parity, the madness that goes on with this tournament, the teams that aren't supposed to get beat or get upset, that's just part of – we're seeing it on the men's side. We're going to see it on the women's side. I don't want to take away from any of the conferences, the great conferences that we all have a chance to play in. But they obviously have done well so far. We realize that they won their conference championship. And we also realize this about this group: they can get down as they were in the Texas game and then fight their way back. And so they're never out of it. And so that's also what makes them a dangerous team. We have a tremendous amount of respect for Oklahoma. And, we know we have to show up here and play a complete 40 minutes in order to have the result that we want.
Great. Thanks for your time
thank
today,
you guys.
Coach.